when I left my abusive relationship, I had to understand why I stayed. Now, I'm not blaming myself for staying, or I'm not victim blaming anybody out there, of course, but I had to take responsibility for what was actually my part.
Okay. And so I'm going to ask you, I want to
Okay.
ask you this. What was your part in it? Welcome to the Relaunch Podcast. And today we are going to light up the waves here. We are going to give you so much to think about, so many things that are happening in the world that sometimes remain behind closed doors. And today it's the day that we're going to open those up. We're going to expose what so many people are going through today. And I have such a really a soft spot for this woman that I'm about to introduce. I met her over a year ago at an event and immediately connected, just felt when she was up speaking of this plight, this journey, this relaunch of so like the extreme. And I thought, you know what? There's going to be a time where I'm going to interview her on this show. We're going to go even deeper than what she normally talks about, so that the person out there that needs to hear this today will have the ability to understand that you're not alone, that there are ways to move through it, to get the help, to have people like my dear friend, Michelle Jewsbury, that is here. And she is a renowned speaker, author, humanitarian. She is the founder of Unsilenced Voices. She's on a mission to empower others and drive not just like local change, but global change around the topic we're going to go in today. Michelle brings this powerful message of resilience and purpose that you're not going to want to miss. You're going to want to hear every single word. So it's now the time to tune in, and you hear me say this a lot, but tune in to hear her inspiring insights and discover how she's helping others reclaim and relaunch their lives. Michelle, it is beyond exciting to have you here, and just knowing what we're going to be able to do having this important conversation.
Well, I'm very, very excited to be here, Hilary. It's a long time coming. And I know that when we first met, we definitely had a connection, and we have a lot of synergy together because we really care about other people, realizing that it's not about us, but it's about giving others platforms and being able to help to accentuate others' voices. So I'm very excited to be here, Hilary. Thank you so much.
Well, and you know what? I've seen you even in the last year continue to spread your wings, continue to drive your message out there. And I personally am such a big fan of yours in so many ways. But I want people who haven't heard your story, that most significant relaunch that has brought you to where you are today. I need you to go there. I need you to take us to those earlier years where you weren't where you are today.
Yeah, so let's start from the beginning, shall we? I
Shall we?
was I was born in a small town in North Idaho to amazing parents. I miss my parents very, very, very much. My daddy passed away in 15 and my mommy in 19, but I still hear them every day saying, "Go girl, go." Well, growing up, it was difficult moving from school to school, but we always relied on our family. Fast forward, I decide after graduating high school that I want to move to Hollywood, California to pursue an acting career. So I was there starring in plays and films and doing what I thought was going to take me to stardom. And lo and behold, I ended up meeting somebody, this blonde haired, blue eyed boy who swept me off my feet. And unfortunately, that relationship turned very, very violent. I never experienced domestic violence growing up. I had no idea what I was facing. And I ended up staying with that perpetrator for over 4 years, experiencing all forms of abuse. When I
So Michelle, before you keep going, how old were you at this point?
um how old was I? Early 30s. So this was
Yeah.
2012.
Okay, so early 30s, and how old was this guy?
Same age. He was a year younger than me.
Okay. And so you meet this person And
Yeah.
again, and I really want to point this out, you did say that you had never experienced anything like this. It's, they often say, well, if it's in your history, if it's in your house when you're growing up, a lot of times you bring it on, right? We've all
Yep.
heard that
Yep.
nonsense line that, you bring it on based on only what you know, but you had never had any of this in your life
No.
and had never seen any of it. So you
No.
meet this guy, and again, he's the handsome guy. And what happened at that point, and how was he at the beginning?
Well, he courted me. He sent me gifts and flowers and took me to baseball games. And
Hmm.
at the moment that we're recording this, the Dodgers are in the World Series. So I'm actually wearing a Dodgers jersey at the moment. So he turned
Right.
me into a big fan. We had fun together.
Mhm.
Lots of concerts. We would charter planes and go to Vegas on a whim. He really treated me like a princess in the beginning. And then the words started to come out. So he would uplift me and say I was the most beautiful and talented woman he had ever known. And then in the next sentence, tell me, what the hell are you doing? That's You're being an idiot, and quit being a piece of poop. Right.
Mm.
Um, so it was
How
this,
long how long did it take him to start changing like that?
if I'm being real with myself, Hilary, it was pretty immediate. However, I didn't recognize those red flags. So I didn't actually see what was going on until about 4 months into that relationship, when he had pushed me so hard against the wall that my head went through it. So I didn't really understand and fathom that this was going to be an abusive situation. See, he was adoring me. We were going on shopping sprees, and he was really texting me every morning and telling me how amazing I was. And it, he made me fall head over heels.
Such
Really,
manipulation. I
yeah.
mean,
Mhm.
and can I ask you this? You said it could have actually started at the very beginning, but he was so good at, he did it and then he gave you what you needed, the love,
And
the
then I questioned myself, Hilary. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah.
that's where the gaslighting really happens in abusive
Mhm.
situations. Is the victim or survivor second guesses the way they remember things, because your perpetrator, your abuser, tells you that you're incorrect, or thinks that, hey, you just triggered me, I won't ever do that again. And then you feel like that you're in the wrong for expressing yourself or being worried or concerned or saying something inappropriately, right? So yeah, it kind of just started as a normal relationship, but very controlling. Very early on, he would have me give him my credit cards and ID because he wanted to take hold of that stuff for me. So I didn't have anything to carry when we were going out. But really, it left me no out if I needed to run away from him. Later on in my relationship, there was only one person that I would really talk to that knew what I was going through. And she encouraged me to hide credit cards in my boots and my ID in my boots.
No way.
So if, for example, I had to run, which happened a few times in the middle of bars or fancy restaurants, then I could use those credit cards to get a taxi or to get a hotel room.
You mentioned this whole idea around, trying to become an actress, and you went out to Hollywood, and well, a show and a movie come to mind. Julia Roberts, there was a movie that she was trying to leave an abuser. And then I think it's Pretty Little Lies with Nicole Kidman, right? I mean, but we think that that's just TV, that's just movies. And what I'm hearing from you is that that was your life. I mean, hiding
Yeah.
the credit card, and your head gets pushed through the wall. What were you thinking after that happened? Because that was early in the relationship, and you were like, what did you think?
Yeah, yeah. So honestly, what I thought when that first happened is I need to patch the hole. I
Oh my,
didn't think that I need to run away. I really thought to myself, oh my gosh, I need to patch this so nobody sees it, not recognizing that it was going to get so much worse than it was. And after that first physical incident, I started to see a lot of the emotional manipulation, the verbal language that he would use. And then of course the physical increased, the sexual also increased, and then the financial abuse, and this perpetuating cycle where you walk on eggshells, then there's a big blow up, and then the apology stage, and then the honeymoon stage all over again. And you really think that he's going to change and that you're the only person that can help him. And that's where I was trapped in that cycle of domestic violence, thinking that he would change. I mean, we even went through therapy together for a little bit. And lo and behold,
what did the therapist say? I mean,
he recommended that we do therapy separately. So we started to do that. And I still see that therapist, because for regular check-ins, right? So it's been 8 years plus. And he, had me recognize signs along the way. He knew what was happening, right? And he wanted me to escape. So, yeah.
So you said it was emotional abuse, it was physical abuse, it was financial abuse. I mean, he really did a number. Like, he did everything.
Yeah.
Now, having never had any type of emotional or physical abuse before this, and I assume there's probably sexual in there. What did he, I mean, it's just a terrible, like, it's not even the trifecta, right? It just kept going and going and going.
Yeah.
I mean, at what point you were going to therapy? Was it at that point that you were like, I got to do something? Like, how does one break away and break the cycle? Because as you said, there is a cycle. It's that abuse, then I'm sorry, then you said it's the honeymoon phase, and then it starts again. Did I miss a phase there? Because I thought you maybe.
No, yeah. So it's it's the big blow up, and then the apology stage, and then the honeymoon, then the walking on eggshells, and the blow up, and the apology, then so that's the big numbers.
And so at what point were you like, because I know you are such a strong individual. You are somebody that I never in a million years would I think you would let anyone put a hand on you.
Yeah.
And this happened, and this is the thing. And you said you told one person. Like, what was going on? What about his friends? Did anyone give you any indication that something funky here?
Yeah. So when I moved in with him, and that was very, very soon into our relationship, because that's also one of the red flags, is moving a relationship too quickly. And when I moved in with him, he had actually tore up his house the night before. So he ended up going through, and he got upset about something, and he had roommates at the time, and he literally was punching holes in the walls, throwing glass everywhere. So when I arrived in my U-Haul, already packed, ready to move into this house, one of his roommates at the time came out and said, "Good luck with him." And I sat there in this destruction of a house going, what did I just get myself into? And then
so you heard, hold on. This is like
not recognize it.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So the roommate said, like, watch out. At this point, how long had you been dating? How many
4 months?
Okay, so it was 4 months when you moved in.
It was right around the time that my head went through that wall.
And was the head in the wall at this apartment?
It was a house, but yes.
Okay, house. At this house, that's where it happened.
Yep.
So this guy is telling you something, and you're a highly intuitive woman. Like, what were you doing to like push it down to say, no, I'm not listening to that right now?
Paul was so charming and so handsome and so Jekyll and Hyde. He was so good at manipulating people that he was speaking and volunteering at high schools and working with big politicians. And really he was this star in society. So when all of this happened, he's like, oh, I was just triggered. He did this, he did that, telling me what his roommates did and not taking responsibility for anything that he had done. And it was this tumultuous feeling in my gut where I was like, okay, something's wrong. I don't know what this is. Like you said, I never experienced abuse. My parents never yelled at each other, let alone raised their hand to one another. So when all of this started happening, I was really unaware as to what domestic violence was, what I was involved with, why I was staying. I mean, a lot of people think that domestic violence is an everyday occurrence. That is not the case. Typically speaking, domestic violence happens 1 or 2 days a month or 1 or 2 days a quarter. And then the rest of the time, we are throwing popcorn at each other and making love on the rooftop of a suite in Mexico because it's not an everyday thing. So when those 1 or 2 days happen, you're beat for 4 hours or you're raped or you're screamed at for hours, you start to give him excuses. And it's not something that's of top of brain. It's something that you naturally are doing because your brain, as you know, being a very smart, intelligent woman, we like to stay comfortable. So I knew what to expect if I stayed. I had no idea what I was going to expect if I left. And to be honest and truthful, I left about 7 different times before finally escaping that relationship. And that is normal. So if somebody's listening to this and they're experiencing domestic violence, or they have experienced this in the past, going back and forth for that long is very, very normal. The Jekyll and Hyde personality is very, very normal. See, all of these traits are very subconscious, but they come out on a conscious level. So it's interesting seeing the similarities between abusers. They don't know each other, but they still allude to the same things. They still do the same action steps. So, yeah.
I mean, I honestly, I'm sitting here and my heart is breaking. And I'm like, but there's always, we talk about the silver linings of things happen because it's the lessons learned and how you'll impact the world. And so, as you said, for those that are listening, when you hear somebody come to you and say, and I've had, clients that have come and one I can remember vividly saying, Hilary, he's only hit me that one time. This isn't what he does. It was unusual. And then it's crazy. It happened again, even though it had never happened in the first 5 years. What do you, because you've been counseling and you have all these incredible programs, and we're going to get to hear more about those, but what do you tell somebody? The people who are listening right now, do you believe it's a one done, you got to get out of there? Is there any room for, no, it was a mistake, it's okay? Like how, because that's, I think, the biggest problem. People don't know when it's, is it ever okay? Right. I mean, that's, I guess, what I'm asking.
Yeah. So this is a very difficult question to uncover. So I'm going to do my best to do that. So every domestic violence case is a little different. Now, it's all in the response of the abuser. You cannot go to couples therapy. You cannot go to therapy thinking that the abuser is going to change. A repercussion has to happen and an acceptance of what they've done has to happen. Meaning that if they hit you that one time and all of a sudden you don't address it, he doesn't address it, maybe he says, oh, I was just triggered, won't happen again, right? The nonchalant response to something like that, I would tell you to get the hell out of there. However, if something happens and maybe there was drugs, alcohol, maybe things just got so far escalated that something happened, but immediately he took responsibility for it. He said, wow, it looks like I need to go get therapy. I need to go to anger management. I need to address the underlying issue of why I expressed my anger in this way. Then there may be hope. I am never an advocate of staying, okay? But I also know if you're with somebody for 30 years, you love them. If this is something that just happened that one time, but then they take that responsibility, then you
Right.
guys can work together and work through that. Outside of that,
Yeah.
it will get worse. If somebody emotionally abuses you on a regular basis, if
Mm.
somebody hits you and doesn't take responsibility, that hitting is going to become repetition because they got away with it once. They'll think they can get away with it again. So
You know
it's
what, Michelle,
really
Michelle,
recognizing
that was so well said. And I've also heard you talk about some pretty alarming statistics. And I help me if I'm saying them wrong, but I remember you saying 1 in 4 women in the US are domestically abused and 1 in 3 in the world.
Yep.
And then you also said 1 in 7 men
Yep.
are domestically abused or abused. Is it? I think it crosses over
Well,
multiple
domestic violence
domestic
can
violence.
cover, yeah, domestic
Yeah.
violence can cover emotional abuse, physical violence, sexual abuse, financial
Yeah.
abuse, psychological
Yeah.
manipulation. So yeah, right. A lot of people don't think this happens to men. This happens to men all the time. Women,
Mhm.
we tend to scream and spit and throw
Mm.
plants. We
Yeah.
tend to try to punch or hit or slap. All of that is domestic violence. So if
Yeah.
you think about you taking responsibility, if you're a woman out there listening to this, taking responsibility for, oh my gosh, I actually slapped my man in the middle of a nightclub one time. Yeah, that's abuse. That is abuse. So it's recognizing those signs on both ends. You
Both
see,
ends.
when I left my abusive relationship, I had to understand why I stayed. Now, I'm not blaming myself for staying, or I'm not victim blaming anybody out there, of course, but I had to take responsibility for what was actually my part. I
Okay. And so I'm
stayed
going to
with,
ask you, I want to
okay,
ask you this. What was your part in it?
I stayed.
Hmm.
I stayed, right? And it doesn't make me wrong for staying because statistically speaking, most people do, especially in the beginning.
Really?
Yeah. However,
Mm.
when now that I have left, now that I've had years behind me, I've done a lot of therapy, a lot of writing. This is my life now. Like I dive into domestic violence, human trafficking, traumas in general.
Mm.
But now that I look back on this, I
Mm.
understand why I stayed. I understand that my responsibility was, well, you recognize some of these flags, yet you continued to not make change until
Mm.
eventually there was a breaking point. And that's what happens, Hilary, is that you have to have a breaking point in the relationship for a change to happen, for you to leave your abuser. And that's what happened with me. I finally reached that breaking point and then was able to finally leave.
You know, it's interesting. Kind of that breaking point sounds like that rock bottom that
Yeah.
alcoholics hit, right?
Yeah.
It's finally that point where it's like, I can't go any lower. Can't,
Yeah.
and that's what it's sounding like, that there's a point when you finally hit that. You were, though, as you said, 7 times that you had tried to leave. And it does sound a lot like the movies. It sounds like TV shows because you were hiding money, you were paying off your car. Can you share a little bit about like how you were preparing for this? Because you can't just cold turkey it. It didn't work.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
No.
leaving. And then you end up going back. So what exactly, if you're hearing or if you're sharing this with other people out there, share a little bit about what you actually did.
Yeah. So when I really started to recognize that I was in trouble,
Mm.
it was about a year into the relationship and I stayed for 4. Okay. So
Jeez.
about a year into the relationship, I had received a beating for 4 hours. It was October. A whole situation happened. We don't need to go into those details, but I was beat for 4 hours. And the next morning I woke up and my face was black and blue. My eye was completely black and red. You couldn't see any white left in my eye. And actually, my eye had turned yellow for 9 months after that incident. And people thought I had jaundice. It
Oh,
was
geez.
really bad. And that's when I was like, oh, this is probably not okay.
Mm.
That beating, like he threw me around the house. I remember running down the street as fast as I could and he catching up to me It was very bad. So when I went through that, the next day woke up, I ended up taking a baseball bat and smashing mirrors in the house because I was just so distraught and I didn't want to look at my face because
Mm.
he had destroyed me. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to figure something out.
Mhm.
And so he didn't want me to work, so I was financially abused. So I would only use my credit cards, which I added his name to pay for debts and bills and things like that. But we used his.
Did he ask you to put his name on
Yeah.
those cards?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So what was interesting is he gave me money every month to pay the credit card bills. So yeah, I had access to one of his accounts that often went to zero. So we had multiple accounts. So I had access to one of his accounts. So I would make double payments on my car because I couldn't afford a Lexus back then. He bought this Lexus for me. And we leased it, but I needed to make sure if and when I had the guts to be able to leave that I had a vehicle. So I made double payments on the car. I would clean up every morning. You know, he would throw his stuff everywhere and he always had cash in his pockets. So I would take some of his cash and start putting it away. So I didn't have my own money. And I would save like that, subconsciously preparing myself to leave because I didn't have an actual intent. I had no idea. Right. So subconsciously I was preparing to leave. And then finally, I mean, it was a year of paying double payments before I finally decided to take that car, leave. And it was this back and forth for a little while. And the really sad part is I had 2 dogs and he, of course, didn't want me to take the dogs, and where I had escaped to, I couldn't take the dogs. So I didn't want to leave because I was going to have to leave the dogs. And lo and behold, I had to leave the dogs. Yeah.
So,
Wow. Yeah. I really don't talk a lot about all this stuff. Good job for getting this out of me, Hilary.
well, you know what? Here's the thing. I believe that you're on the show right now because people need to hear it. And especially after COVID, where the numbers of domestic violence just skyrocketed. And it really, it was just something I remember hearing about it. I'm like, God, it was bad and it's just gotten so much worse. So I would love to share what you are doing today, the relaunches that you're doing. And, there was something I do want you to touch on, and that is after you left and you became stronger again, you did go back to Hollywood and share with us what you did at that point.
Yeah. So after I left, I started to document my story because I was still not in the acceptance part of what happened to me. So when I started to document it, it came out as a play to begin with. So I ended up writing and performing a 65-minute solo play about my experience in domestic violence and performing that in 2015. People started coming up to me afterwards, telling me their stories, saying, thank you so much for speaking up. During that time, I was just wanting to express myself, not knowing that that was a part of healing. Well, when people started telling me their stories, I felt called to do something more because, as you said, God doesn't want you to go through these horrible situations, but he is able to turn broken pieces into beautiful things. And I felt this huge calling to use my story to help. So in 2017, I founded a nonprofit organization called Unsilenced Voices. We primarily work in Sierra Leone, West Africa. However, we've done work in Ghana and Rwanda. 2022, we gifted $33,000 to USA survivors, did a 4-city tour. 2019, I began speaking and coaching. So I run a for-profit and a nonprofit business. And the speaking and coaching, we help people tell their stories. And it's not just domestic violence, it's any adversity, but being able to express themselves. So we have book collaborations. We've got a program called Legacy Camp to help people tell their stories through courses and content, public speaking, and of course, publishing a book. And then we do speaking summits every quarter. We have a little virtual speaker summit where speakers can apply to speak. It's very inexpensive. We do marketing and promotion behind it. and they get to tell their stories of how they've been able to overcome the adversities in their life. Because like on your podcast right now, there's people listening saying, oh my gosh, this is me, or this is my friend, I recognize this. Just like here on those summits, somebody's saying, oh my gosh, I just learned something today that may have saved a life.
I mean, I got to say, incredible, incredible. And so you've given us your kind of relaunch future to where you're going. You're taking now what you're doing, you're expanding upon it. But I love what you're doing in terms of people sharing and really developing their stories, because there is not a person alive that doesn't have a story. And it's amazing. Some of the best stories are the ones that people are like, it's not that big a deal. I just did it. It's like trauma for one is not trauma for another, but it can impact lives of hundreds of thousands to hear it in the way you deliver it. And it was
Very
interesting.
true.
Well, and before we kind of hit the live button, I was saying I've done 250, probably 275 of these interviews throughout the years I've been doing the Relaunch podcast. And there are people that really know how to share their story, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the ones that are like, oh boy, I already know this is like, they just haven't perfected how to say it, how to make that impact, how to have the hero's journey. And I do a lot of that with people. But I would love to kind of do something with you where we get people to come together and be able to share, as you said, wow, I don't usually share this much. And the more you can, it's when you hold back that people think there's something missing. We can feel the energy. We can feel that, like, or you can make it so that I want more. I want more of what Michelle is putting out in the world. I want to be in the room with her. I want to be in her courses and classes and do things like that. So I just admire you so much. So share with us now, though, from the nonprofit, the charity side, how can people listening not only get involved with helping others, but also helping themselves?
Yeah. So from the charity aspect side, like I said, we primarily work in West Africa. So we're in Sierra Leone. That's where the bulk of our programming is. Currently, we're fundraising for a school with a housing component. Many of our girls that we work with in Sierra Leone have been trafficked to the country, have been through tons of abuse, many of them in sex work themselves. And housing is so limited that even when they're rescued and even when we're working with them with medical and counseling and vocational training, they're still living in the brothels, meaning that they're not having sex, but they're still using the facilities in the brothels. And many of them are getting reoccurring STIs because it's just that disgusting. We literally work where there's no running water, no electricity. It's tough. So we need that housing component. In the United States, we want to build a day center with wraparound services and emergency housing. We need funding. Of course, for every nonprofit, the number one thing we need is funding. And you can go to unsilencedvoices.org. Again, unsilencedvoices.org. But as far as volunteering, we have events every year. I would love to have volunteers be able to help us. I have speaking events as well. They're all kind of tied in together. This is why it's interesting. I run a for-profit and nonprofit. I pay money into the nonprofit from my for-profit. I donate over 10% of everything I make to the nonprofit organization. And
Beautiful.
when we have enough funds coming in, then I'll get paid with Unsilenced Voices. So there was about a year and a half where that was doable. Right now, no. All that money needs to go to our girls. So we need more events. We need people that have ideas to put fundraisers together. Ideas of meeting people. Relationship capital is key. It's all through nurturing relationships that you can build any community, any organization. So introducing me to some of those key figures that maybe have the deeper pockets that want to collaborate or contribute to a nonprofit organization making a difference.
Oh, that is so great. And then as far as the for-profit, where you're helping people find their voices, share their voices, develop it, and really get it out on stages and things, where do people go for that?
So my name, it's very easy, MichelleJewsbury.com. Again, Michelle Jewsbury, JEWSBURY.com. You can book a call with me there. We have spots for Legacy Camp. We do Legacy Camp about 5 times a year. The book collaboration right now, at the time of this recording, we're only doing 1 a year. However, that may increase. Currently, we're looking for volume 3 authors. We've got about 10 spots left in that book. And then if you want to speak or share your story, Hilary and I will also be doing something soon.
Who will be the authors? Like, what are you looking for? Is it chapters? And what type of content? What are these people that are like, I want to write and I want to be in a chapter? What are you looking for?
Yeah, so it's any type of adversity that you've experienced. So a lot of our clients, grief, suicide, domestic violence, human trafficking, sexual abuse, disease, different traumas, right?
Yeah,
those individuals that have now taken their story and want to, or who are doing something more with it. So it's that hero's arc. It's the adversity and then what they're doing now in spite of or because of. So it's a full chapter. It's 4,000 words. So you get an entire chapter to tell your story. And here's the great thing about being part of a collaboration. You have 25 other authors who are promoting that book, promoting your story. So it's not just you, it's a team of people working to expose some of these issues and get you the exposure that you need.
I don't think people know this, that my first entry into books was a chapter in another book. And when I finished writing that one chapter, Step Into Your Brilliant Life, it ended up, I literally put down the, computer and I'm like, oh my God, I have so much more to say. And that's when I ended up writing Relaunch, Spark Your Heart to Ignite Your Life. That was the catalyst. So for those that have wanted to write a book, that are ready to do this, that want to share, and really put your story out there, it is a great way. And as you said, you're with other women that are all putting these stories out there. So awesome, Michelle.
And men.
Oh, and men. Love it.
Yeah.
Love that it's kind of the, you got both there. I think mine was, I think it was all women, the first one I did, because I've done 3 now where after I did my one book, then I went and I did 2 more of just chapters because I'm like, wait, I forgot to put this in the book and that in the book. So it really is. It's incredible. But listen, I know you've got a game to go to. And is there a game tonight? I think there is.
I'm not attending the game tonight.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Because I'm like, I think it might be going on. Like you may want to get there fast. Okay. But you're going to go watch it. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here, sharing your story, talking about Unsilenced Voices. I mean, it's incredible, your journey, but I know that, again, the silver linings are you now are helping shape how people can deal with these issues. It's obviously incredibly prevalent. And thank you for being one of the forefront leaders in the plight, because let me tell you, everyone is lucky to have you there because you are so powerful. So thank you again for being here. Everyone, please go visit and get involved in Michelle's, organizations. She's absolutely incredible. We will be thinking about how we can, put something out there. And as I always say, live now, right? You got to live now, but because of what we've just heard, you got to live your own life based on what you believe you deserve. And you all deserve to be in a safe, healthy environment. So when you say live now, live the way that you know you need to be treated. And then love now. The more you give, the more you get. And it's all about relaunch now into the next best version of you. And we will see you again next week. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
If you like this video and want to get more like it, head over here.